The world is not as friendly as you imagine. Polite smiles and seemingly harmless conversations. Sometimes they are the very doors through which danger enters. Not every disaster comes from carelessness. Sometimes a single word spoken to the wrong person at the wrong time is enough to make you a target. In an age where every action is watched, both online and offline, what makes you most vulnerable is not what others hide, but what you unconsciously reveal. From financial information and travel schedules to personal weaknesses, every small detail can become a tool for others to manipulate, attack, or even destroy you. This video is not about fear. It is about awareness, about the right to keep sacred what is most personal, your privacy, your safety, and your dignity. And if you've believed that sharing is the way to connect, perhaps it's time to learn the silence that helps you survive. 1. Never reveal your personal financial information. We live in an age where sharing has become second nature, from daily meals and weekend trips to major milestones like buying a house, changing cars, or hitting significant financial goals. At first glance, these seem like ways to connect, small celebrations with friends. But what few realize is this: the world is listening, and not everyone listens with goodwill. When you post a picture holding keys in front of your new home, you believe you're capturing a happy moment. But to the silent observer, a distant acquaintance, a shallow co-worker, or even a stranger who stumbles upon your post, it becomes a map to your residence, a signal that you've acquired assets, a piece of data indicating you now have something to lose. And they begin to calculate. Not everyone steals, but everyone has the instinct to take advantage. A compliment on your post doesn't guarantee the person means it. Some stay silent, not because they don't care, but because they're studying your worth. A new watch, a status update about a car purchase, or even a simple thank you for a pay raise, all become puzzle pieces for others to draw a picture of your finances. In an age where information spreads faster than intentions, the more you share, the more predictable, exposed, and targeted you become. Bad actors don't strike impulsively. They don't attack at random. They choose those valuable enough to pursue, but not alert enough to defend. And you, the one who casually posted, "Finally got the house," or "After years of hard work, upgraded my car," become the perfect candidate. The diligent rarely boast. The wise know that sharing is for connection, not display. The Stoic never flaunts a triumph. They know that the fewer who know, the fewer who can harm. Human nature longs for recognition, and that is the trap. Each like becomes a dose of praise, each congratulation a fix for the ego. And then we repeat the behavior, sharing more, flaunting more, exposing more. But in doing so, we wear down our invisible armor. What should have remained hidden is brought into the light just to earn a few seconds of attention at the cost of our family's safety. The Stoic does not deny joy, but asks, why do I want to share this? To connect or to be acknowledged? And from that question, they choose silence. Not out of fear, but from understanding. True safety does not come from being widely known, but from wisely choosing what to withhold. In a world where every glance can be a blade, discretion is armor. You don't need to prove you're living well. Live well enough that proof becomes unnecessary. There is a simple truth, hard to accept. When you tell someone your salary, your bonus, or that you've paid off a debt, in the eyes of some, you're no longer a person. You become a number, a resource to exploit, a walking wallet. They don't care how hard you work, what struggles you've endured, or whether you're worried about your parents, children, or future. They see only one thing: you have money. And from that, they begin to calculate. It may start with harmless questions. How's business lately? Heard you got a raise. Can I borrow a little? I'll pay you next week. But if you say no, the lines become clear. Those who smiled at you turn cold. Those who congratulated you begin to judge. They were never drawn to you as a person, only to what they thought you could give. And when you offer no benefit, they drop the pretense. Relationships built on expectation, not trust, always come with limits. Worse still, once people know you have money, they assign you responsibilities that aren't yours. They expect you to pay, support, help. And if you don't, you're seen as stingy, selfish, ungrateful. From a regular worker, you're recast in their minds as an unofficial sponsor. Your every action is scrutinized, has money but won't help, drives a nice car but won't spare a few bucks. Even without making promises, you're trapped in others' silent expectations. The Stoic understands this. What is exposed is what gets manipulated. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Receive wealth without arrogance and be ready to let it go." This is not just a lesson in humility. It is a rule for protection. When people don't know what you possess, they cannot use it to control you. True wealth doesn't need to be proven. The quieter it is, the safer it becomes. And you, if you wish to keep your peace, learn to let others underestimate you rather than exploit you for what they overestimate. For once you're seen as a resource, you're no longer seen as human. 2. Never disclose your security systems. When you tell others that you've just installed a new camera system, bought a high-tech safe, or upgraded your locks with biometric tech, you may think you're showing caution, a sense of protecting yourself and your family. But you fail to see that you're also revealing exactly what an intruder would need to know to breach your life. You're not just showing them what you're protecting. You're confirming there's something valuable enough to warrant such protection. Unintentionally, you've drawn a map and handed it to others. Not one leading to treasure, but to the weakness behind your armor. In a world where anyone can be watching, you never truly know who's listening. It could be the co-worker who offered polite smiles, the old friend you've only seen a few times on social media, or even a stranger who stumbled across your comment in a Facebook group. Anyone could retain that detail you casually revealed. I keep the safe in the last wardrobe. There are cameras on every window, except the one behind the kitchen. I use the X-brand fingerprint lock. Super convenient, no keys needed. These may sound like tips or proud remarks, but to the one watching, they're data, puzzle pieces for a plan. Worse still is when you joke about the truth. You might casually mention at a party, "Nothing worth stealing at my place, no alarms anyway," thinking you sound humble. But what you've actually done is announce that your home is easy to enter, has no significant defenses, and that you don't think of yourself as a target. You've just made yourself the ideal mark, overconfident, vulnerable, and unprepared. Intruders look for weaknesses, and you just pointed them out. Stoicism doesn't ask us to live in fear. It calls us to see reality clearly. Silence is a sharp form of defense. A fortress is not strong because of high walls or abundant weapons, but because no outsider knows the way in. Likewise, a strong person does not reveal how they protect themselves, because they know what remains hidden is hardest to break. You don't need to tell the world what you're protecting. Let your safety lie in what others cannot guess. That is the strongest armor, not made of steel, but of secrecy. There is a simple law in nature every predator knows. They don't go after the strongest, fastest, or hardest to catch. They target the slower, the careless, the less alert. In the same way, attackers in real life, from thieves to manipulators, follow the same instinct. They don't go after high-risk targets. They choose those who seem accessible, predictable, easy to fool. That's why hiding your strength is such an effective defense. Because once you reveal all you have, you leave no uncertainty for others to fear. And when an attacker knows what you rely on, that becomes the first thing they try to neutralize. In truth, many think that showing their security will scare people off, but that only deters the good. The bad don't fear what you have. They just need to know what it is so they can find a way around it. Got cameras? They'll cover their face. Got a smart lock? They'll study that model online. Have a dog? They'll bring drugged meat. When they know your defenses, they have time to prepare. You think you've discouraged them, but you've handed them a practice exam. And the patient ones always find an answer. On the other hand, when you live discreetly, when no one knows exactly what you hold, others hesitate. They doubt, they second guess, and most importantly, they shift to someone else. Attackers always go for the weaker, lower risk, easier to infiltrate target. You don't need to be the strongest, just unreadable, unpredictable, unreachable. That is how the Stoic lives. No display of weapons, no reveal of plans, no need for approval in defense. Their strength comes from within, not from the gaze of others. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "True strength needs no proof." Once you grasp that, you no longer feel the need to show how secure you are. Just live in a way that others can never be certain of your defenses. That uncertainty, that shadow, is what makes you hard to attack. In a world where everything you share can be weaponized, keeping something for yourself isn't passivity. It is the active practice of control. And that control, quietly held, becomes a fortress no one sees, yet none can breach. 3. Do not share personal or family vulnerabilities. We are all human, and because we are human, we have cracks. Fears we have never named, wounds that still throb, emotions we can't fully explain, and fragile moments we cannot always hide. In an ideal world, opening up would be encouraged, for it creates empathy, connection, and understanding. But the world we live in is not ideal. Not everyone will use your truth to care for, heal, or protect you. Some will listen silently, smile in sympathy, and later use the very things you believed were signs of closeness as tools to manipulate you when the time is right. Once you admit you fear abandonment, someone will control you with silence. If you confess you were once betrayed, someone will keep you doubting yourself in a relationship. When you reveal your anxiety, exhaustion, or emotional sensitivity, someone will use that to unbalance you at the very moment you most need composure. And the painful truth is that the most skilled manipulators do not strike immediately. They listen, remember, accumulate, and wait. They let you feel safe in the relationship until you become dependent. At that point, every weakness you ever shared is no longer a confession. It becomes leverage. This does not mean you are not allowed to be sad or weak, but you must learn to discern where you can lean and where someone is waiting for you to slip. The Stoic does not suppress emotion. They simply refuse to let it become a tool for others to wield. They know that the deepest wound is the one reopened by someone else, not with a knife, but with memory. So they choose to heal in silence. They write in journals instead of complaining aloud. They turn to those truly trustworthy instead of sharing on social media. They accept their pain, but never hand it over to anyone who hasn't earned the right to hold it. You do not need to expose every wound to be loved. You do not need to recount every mistake to be respected. And you certainly do not need to build your worth on pity. Let your pain be processed through reason, inner discipline, and deliberate discretion. Because sometimes what brings you down is not the pain itself, but the way others use it against you when you're unguarded. Keeping something for yourself doesn't make you distant. It helps you survive. In a world where weakness is exploited more than soothed, silence is a form of dignity. And that is where true strength begins. We often think that talking about family, parents, children, spouses, siblings, is a natural part of life. It's a way to share burdens, seek understanding, or simply to make conversation. But what most people fail to realize is that every detail you reveal about a loved one's weakness, no matter how small, is a door you open for others to walk through. And not everyone who walks through that door carries goodwill. You say your mother is elderly, lives alone, and forgets things easily. You mention your wife is going through a mental health crisis, or that your son walks home alone each afternoon. To you, these are ordinary facts, simple truths about your family. But to someone with a calculating mind, they are opportunities. A malicious person doesn't need to target you directly if they know someone you love is more vulnerable. They will attack indirectly, by approaching your mother when you're away, by threatening your child to control you, by exploiting your loved one's weakness to force you into submission. And when that happens, you won't just feel helpless. You'll carry the guilt of having spoken words that should have remained unspoken. The sad truth is this: your loved ones didn't choose to become your weaknesses, but they become weak points the moment you bring them into the light at the wrong time, to the wrong people. You thought you were simply sharing for empathy, but you cannot control who listens, who remembers, or who acts on what they've heard. And once that happens, you don't just lose your family's privacy, you fracture the deepest bond within it: trust. The Stoic understands that silence is not apathy, it is a sacred act of protection. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If something is dear to you, guard it as something sacred." Family, in all its forms, is the most sacred part of a person's life. And the sacred is never material for small talk. If someone in your family is struggling, the right response is not to tell others. It is to stand by them, quietly rebuilding their wall of safety, without needing an audience. Because in a turbulent world, you're not only responsible for your own safety, but must also learn to shield those you love. Every time you remain silent at the right moment, you add another layer of armor, not just for yourself, but for everyone within your sphere. That is how you become a true protector, not through words, but through vigilance, not through sharing, but through setting boundaries, not by exposure, but by preservation. 4. Never disclose your location or travel schedule. Every time you post a check-in at a cafe, a story from the airport, or a status that says, "currently in Dalat," you think you're preserving a moment, sharing joy, or simply engaging with friends. But what you fail to see is that you've just revealed something far more valuable than the image itself. You've disclosed your absence from the one place that matters most: your home. In that radiant moment when you appear in another city, what you're really telling the world is, "I'm not at home, and I won't be back for a while." And you've said this to hundreds, even thousands of people, including those you don't know, those who only follow you online, and those you have no idea are waiting for the right moment to act. You don't have to be famous to become a target. In an age where personal information leaks with a single click, you can be tracked by strangers for no other reason than the fact that you willingly publicized your travel plans. What's more frightening is that no alarm sounds, no warning appears when you accidentally turn your house into a white zone, a place with no people, no oversight, and no defenses. And you revealed it, not with a declaration, but with a captioned photo. Chilling in Phu Quoc. More than a few cases have unfolded just like this. A family posts photos from a 2-week vacation abroad, only to return and find their valuables gone. The thief needed no scouting, no surveillance. It was all neatly laid out on social media. The danger deepens when you don't live alone. Your absence means your loved ones, elderly parents, young children, remain at home, unequipped to handle an emergency. What you thought was harmless was, in fact, a public invitation. "I'm not here, and this is the perfect time to break in." Stoicism teaches us to examine the essence of action, not just the emotion behind it. The urge to share is real, but the act of sharing can carry unseen consequences. The Stoic understands that presence isn't about letting others know where you are. It's about what you do with your silence. They live mindfully, not from fear, but from a clear understanding that safety comes from control. Control of information, of emotion, of how one appears to the world. You don't need to prove that you're living fully. You just need the wisdom not to unlock your front door with a single post. And sometimes, the wisest thing you can do is enjoy the day without anyone knowing where you are. There is one thing many modern people overlook: personal routines, once repeated and made public, become clear signals to anyone watching. When you post your morning jog on the same route, check into the same yoga class every Wednesday evening, or update your story from your favorite Sunday cafe, you are building a precise movement map that you yourself have publicized. To you, it feels like normal sharing. But to someone with intent to monitor or exploit, you've just provided a detailed itinerary, no different from a planner on the wall, consistent, predictable, easy to track, and extremely convenient to follow. One of the greatest mistakes is believing that only public figures need to worry about being followed. The truth is, anyone can become a target, and that target isn't always chosen out of hate. Sometimes it's twisted curiosity, a desire to exert control, or an anonymous obsession from someone you never suspected. It could be an old acquaintance, a distant co-worker, or just a stranger who once glanced at your profile. And once they notice you appear in the same place, at the same time, you've become the perfect subject to approach, to harass, or worse, to harm. The danger lies in this. You don't see it coming, because when sharing becomes habit, you no longer notice how routine it is. You think you're living an organized, admirable life, but others see you as someone easy to predict, easy to find, easy to approach, and easy to exploit. And when someone knows where you'll be, when and with whom, they no longer need to break into your home. They just need to arrive minutes before you, or wait during your usual solo walk, and strike from the shadow you didn't expect. The Stoic lives in awareness, not by avoiding the world, but by not letting the world know too much about them. They understand that discretion is the mist that blurs their tracks. They never allow themselves to become a walking map in someone else's eyes. True freedom doesn't come from constant movement. It comes from no one knowing where you'll appear. Think carefully before you say, "I'm always here at this time." Because the person saying that isn't always you. Sometimes it's the posts you repeat that speak for you, that trace your every step, and that guide those who should know nothing about you. Safety isn't about armed presence. It's about untraceable presence. And sometimes, freedom begins with one simple choice. Live without broadcasting. 5. Never reveal data that can be used for identity theft. There is a truth few recognize. Your identity is not stolen in one sudden hack, but through hundreds of small pieces of information you've voluntarily shared over the years. Details like your first pet's name, your elementary school, your mother's birthday, your favorite food, or an old address. These may seem like harmless anecdotes, ways to connect, memories you simply want to relive. But to someone with bad intentions, all of this is valuable material for assembling a complete digital portrait of you. One detailed enough to grant them access to places only you were ever meant to enter. We live in an age where knowing about someone is no longer limited to face-to-face conversations. A stranger with enough patience and a bit of cybersecurity knowledge can trace the digital breadcrumbs you've left across social media. From nostalgic posts about school to light-hearted Q&A games like "Do you remember your first car?" to random comments under a friend's post, all of it unwittingly answers the very security questions banks, emails, and digital accounts used to protect you. What's terrifying is that you never realize you're being digitally stripped bare. You don't need to post your bank information, phone number, or email address. Simply scattering bits of seemingly harmless data over time is enough for someone to piece together your entire identity system. And when they have enough, there's no knock at the door, no figure lurking at your gate. They'll simply log into your account, change the password, reset the authentication code, and take everything you spent years building. Money, data, reputation, and peace of mind. A Stoic never underestimates the power of small things. Marcus Aurelius once emphasized, "Nothing is too small to have consequences." Every word, every action, every shared sentence carries weight, whether immediate or quietly unfolding. In the digital age, you can't control who's watching, but you can control what you reveal. Think of personal data like the digits of your bank PIN. Even one exposed number can break the whole system. You don't need to live in fear, but you do need to live with awareness. The fewer people who know you, the more power you retain over yourself. And sometimes, what protects you most isn't a stronger password. It's the habit of staying silent when nothing truly needs to be said. In the digital world, each person has their own technological ecosystem they use to manage life. From banking apps, money transfers, digital wallets, productivity software, to personal data storage, family photos, and health records. The platforms, apps, and tools you use should remain private because they are the foundation of your personal privacy. Yet many people reveal this unconsciously. Through app reviews, stories showing off investment dashboards, comments boasting about what app they just used to make a purchase, or which platform they prefer for transfers or point collection. To you, it's convenience. To an attacker, it's a roadmap. And you've just saved them dozens of steps in reconnaissance. You must understand a basic rule of cyber attacks. Attackers don't need elite hacking skills to breach a global system. They only need to know where you are, what you use, and what you depend on. If you announce to the world that you bank with X, they only need to create a fake email or spoofed web page that mimics that bank and send you a fraudulent notification designed to trick you into giving up your password, OTP, or access credentials. It's a familiar script, and many still fall for it. Not because they don't know how to protect themselves, but because they painted a target on their back through habitual oversharing. The more public you are about the platform you trust, the more you help others identify your weak spot should that platform ever be compromised. For example, if you state that you store personal data on a specific cloud service, you've just told them they don't need to search everywhere. They only need to breach that one place. And if they can impersonate a notice from that service convincingly or exploit a known security flaw, your critical data, IDs, private photos, financial records, all fall into their hands. You weren't hacked due to negligence, but because you spoke too much. A Stoic would never do this. They don't define their identity by the tools they use, nor seek validation by announcing which app they rely on, which wallet they prefer, or how they manage their finances. They understand that what's most visible is most vulnerable. Discretion is not secrecy. It's a protective layer you build around yourself, bit by bit, through mindful awareness. No one needs to know what services you use to live efficiently, and you owe the world no explanation about where you place your trust. Each time you reveal a platform you rely on, you lay another brick on the path to your personal system. And someone patient enough will follow those bricks until the moment you realize they've entered your home without breaking in, simply because you had already unlocked the door. In a world where cyber attacks grow more targeted and sophisticated, what keeps you safe is not the best system. It's the smallest footprint. Digital silence isn't fear. It's the highest form of control. And the Stoic knows this well. Protecting yourself doesn't begin with fighting off attackers, but with not turning yourself into a target in the first place. I'm not writing this to spread fear. I'm writing because I too was once careless. Once believed that a little sharing wouldn't hurt. Once trusted that the world was kind enough not to exploit what was private. But then I witnessed people around me being harmed, not because they were wrong, but because they trusted too much. Someone lost their entire bank account because of an innocent online game. Someone was harassed because their daily routine was exposed. Someone was manipulated by the very person who once sat across from them in intimate conversation. And I came to realize that in this age, privacy is no longer a given. It is an asset. The Stoic does not live in suspicion, but they always hold on to control. They choose to speak less, to show up with intention, and never to hand others a weapon by exposing themselves. That is not coldness, it is clarity. I don't want you to live in worry. I only hope you live with awareness, because sometimes the thing that keeps you safest is not your skill at defense, but the fact that no one knows what you're guarding. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss future content. Because sometimes the strongest thing isn't what you show, it's what you have the courage to keep to yourself. See you in the next video.